Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're going to have a conversation with a man who is my brother beloved, a very, very dear friend who's had a tremendous life. He now has a program down in St. Louis for our children, for the urban children. And he's got a wonderful book, Urban Child. It's an audio book. You have got to get it. His story will move you. He takes you from pushing dope to pushing hope. He has had a life. Homelessness, wealth, can't figure this out, to a multi-million-dollar company that he has today, in which he markets to you, to urban America. But there's a story behind all of this glory. Boy, we welcome to the show. Well, that's not original to me. That's preacher talk. Johnel Langerston.
Hey.
Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show.
Well, thank you for having me, Santita.
I am so glad to be able to speak with you today because you are doing the work that our church really must move toward doing. And I would say this to Darius Brooks, my music director, Grammy Award winner, who has quite a story himself. I can't wait to get you from behind those keyboards one day to talk about your story. But he now is pastoring from, Grammy Awards, writing all these great, iconic gospel songs, to pastoring. And it's a different world when you have to talk to people one-on-one. And so I want you to talk to people about not just your book, because I want everyone to get the book Urban Child, because it talks about the thin line between love and hate, the thin line between what the illicit trade and legitimate so-called business.
Exactly.
But before we get there, before we get to Fat Effects, P-H-A-T-E-F-X.
And that's pretty hot and tempting.
Hello. Look, before we get there, we would have to go to prison. Being in the hole for 4 years, being under probation for 10 years. We have to go back to college, to community college. We have to go back to the problems you had in school, to 9 schools in 6 years. Let's go back. Where were you born?
I was born in Oakland, California, or a city that was kind of founded off of the shipping freight for the military off of San Francisco. The Bay Area has a unique, market. It's its own culture within a culture. A lot of times, a lot of things was born out of the Bay Area. The Huey Newton, for instance, Black Panther Party, Berkeley, California. These are
Sly Stone.
So Oakland has this ingredient where people want to stand out, and that's kind of like embedded in your gene,
Are they fighting against the wealthy city on the other side of the bay? San Francisco, right?
I think that San Francisco definitely has this appeal, but Oakland and San Francisco don't even have the same energy.
It's different vibe.
It's a different vibe. It's a complete different culture. When I was growing up, I went to 6 different elementary schools before I reached the 6th grade, and by that time I reached the 6th grade, I met my mom for the first time and found out she was white, and that's because my dad was in prison for murder. And so,
before we go there, what was it like was it a game changer for you to find out that your mother was white, or did you just go, well, this is my mom and that's that?
Not really, because I didn't like white people.
Well, how did you then reconcile your relationship with your mom?
I think that, God has embedded in us energy source where we know who our mom is. When I met my mom for the first time, it didn't matter to me that she was white. It just, that was my mother. But when you're moved from school to school to school and missing foster homes, and these are all clear people, what I call white people, clear people, not to offend them, but these people are constantly coming to get you and grab you, and you've been disciplined by them, and these things give you a hatred towards that energy and that color. And then, of course, being in poverty areas, you don't get a chance to see too many white people. So there's a automatic discomfort around someone that's not black.
But then how did you receive your mom?
I really embraced my mom when I first met her. I was very excited that I was meeting my mom for the first time. I thought that I really wanted to get out of the conditions I was already living in, because I was living in a house where I was sleeping with both my uncles, and my grandfather slept next to me. And so it was like 6 people living in a 3-bedroom house, including my grandmother would make 7. So it was really crowded, and I wanted to get out of that situation. And so to meet my mom, and she being white, in my mind, my mom rich, you know.
Okay, was she?
No, she wasn't.
Okay. Well, what
But you know,
about
that's the image.
Well, what about your dad? Yeah, it is, but it's not true.
Right.
But what about your father? Did you ever go see him? You said he was in prison.
Right. He was in a halfway house. He was accused of a homicide, and you know, growing up in the inner city, that becomes a part of your lifestyle. Going to see my dad was like fun to me. You know, I'm getting ready to go into the halfway house and visit him. It's like going to the park. Mm-hmm. You know, it's natural in the subculture that I come from.
It's not even the subculture. You know, it's the culture.
It has become the culture.
You know,
yes.
I mean, they call it because sub is under, it's less than.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, we live how we live.
Right.
I mean, but did you ever feel, did you have other friends who were in similar circumstances?
Everyone around you, obviously, you know, your whole family, you know, it's a common thing to see someone in your family go to jail. That's like almost getting your badge of honor. In the inner city area, when you go to jail, you come out buff, strong. That's all you think about, you know, people coming home, being swole and taking over the neighborhood because they the strongest one on the block. So, you know, growing up, that's kind of like something you can't wait to experience. Mm-hmm. It's like
that you cannot wait to experience prison.
Exactly.
Wow.
You don't know that. That's not what you're really waiting for, but in your mind, you looking for this validated, tough guy or person to come back to the community and terrorize.
As you go through all of these schools, did you have how did that impact you academically?
You know, not being able to read and write.
And socially. I mean, did you?
Well, actually, to be honest, at the time, I had no idea, but it was actually teaching me people skills. Because when you going from school to school, you're getting an opportunity to meet new people all the time. Mm-hmm. And eventually you kind of, you know, you gel into that type of mentality. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea getting to meet somebody will become so easy for me now. And the proper term for that is people skill, mm-hmm. networking, socializing. These things become a way of existing now. Well, back then, it was a transformation. It was like uncomfortable. Oh, I got to go to another school. Oh, well, it won't be long before I get kicked out of there because you knew you light and bright, half white, you can't go home unless you fight. There's going to be conflict, period.
Did you have to deal with colorism? Because that's really what that is.
Right.
Were you dealing with that before you knew your mother was white?
You know, because of my melanin, my skin is a little bit lighter than most kids that I grew up around. It mm-hmm. was always my curly hair. It was always rumored that I was a half-breed. It wasn't, you know, it was like I had a big fro, you know, and it was almost natural. Okay, this kid, he ain't all black, you know, but you couldn't prove it. No one really knew. But mm-hmm. you look like a half-breed, so it's easy to get tagged that way.
When you, did you feel like an outsider, or what did that do?
Well, when you're in a classroom and the teacher is talking and you know you don't know how to pay attention, you start wandering. So it's like, okay, here you are teaching a curriculum and I don't understand what's going on. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start communicating.
With all of these schools, could you read? Because I cannot imagine.
Not past the 3rd grade.
Really?
I couldn't read past the 3rd grade all the way up to my prison incarceration. And I went to college and everything and never learned how to read or write past the 3rd grade.
How did you get to high school?
You know, I believe that the system has been, you know, it's almost like it's called ADA, you know, average daily attendance. You know, we need bodies in these chairs, mm-hmm. so they create programs. I'll give you an example. I was always good in math. So instead of me getting Algebra 1, I got Algebra A. Because I lived in what they call a red line area. Red line areas are areas where people are poor. You get higher insurance in red line areas. So if your zip code is in this particular area code, you can't afford to go to school. So I'm going to give you curriculums that are not transferable units. So even though I did well in math and not everything else, I was in these special ed classes. And these classes are, you could just show up and get a grade. It's kind of like you dummy down the culture by saying, okay, if you show up and you stay in the class all day, I'm going to give you a grade. That's half your grade. The other half of your grade is if you pay attention. You don't have to turn no work in, and you can still pass.
As you, having had that experience, having been someone who was discounted, right? Because you went to, when you went to high school, you were actually, you could have been kicked out. If zero tolerance had been the order of the day then, you would have gone to jail far sooner than you did.
Oh, without a doubt. But I had one thing in my favor. My mom is white, you know. And because of that, in that time zone, whenever I did get in trouble, I remember one time in particular, Mr. King class, never forget it, at Malcolm X Elementary School. We had career day. Fire department came in. The guy was giving a thing, and he was asking everybody, what you want to be when you grow up? And I couldn't wait for my turn. He like, what you want to be when you grow up? I said, I'm going to be a drug lord. I said, as a matter of fact, like. And the class burst out into laughter, and everything was going on. Now, Mr. King was kind of cool about it, and he let the day go on, but he had made a call to my mom, and he was suspending me for that. And I didn't notice, so I'm sitting in the back again, messing with somebody next to me, you know, talking, and then the door opens, and I'm study talking, and as the door opened, the class get quiet. And I'm like, okay, what everybody tripping on? I look up, it's my mama at the door. I'm like, oh my goodness. I started hiding. I'm like, now everybody see, it's Mama White. And Mr. King was like, who you here to see? And he said my name all the way across the room. I wanted to throw a book at him that day. But I was so embarrassed that my mom came to my elementary school and showed everybody that she was my mom. That was the turning point of that school for me.
What do you mean?
Because now you can't go home unless you have a fight. I had a fight every day after school after that.
What about when you, I mean, just with, then I would think that you would be tagged as someone who had behavioral problems, behavioral issues. And that's not a good thing.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just, was it social promotion? You just got passed from grade to grade to grade to grade.
Absolutely. And as time progressed, you know, and when I did get in trouble, you know, as in that incident there, you know, you'd find that the teachers and the principals would show favoritism to my mom. And then once they realized that she had a black child, they couldn't go back on what they were going to do, because they couldn't put two and two together. When she come in to pick up the child that's in trouble, it's like, well, who's your son? You know, but first you get the good treatment. And then it's, which one of these boys is yours?
Did she know that? Was she clear on that?
You know, I think my mom, you know, she's such a high, free-spirited woman that, you know, color wasn't an issue with her. She never seen color like people see color. You know, you have some people out there, we couldn't have got out of slavery if it wasn't for some of these people that were clear who just really love our culture. And my mom is one of them type of people. She just didn't see color. You know, so she couldn't have identified with that, although I knew what was up, she didn't.
But see, I would think that that would be a challenge, because even though you have a white mother, you're still living in America as a black man.
Exactly.
And so you're fighting with some black folks, you're fighting with the mainstream culture. It's like, you know, because you want to be able to talk to your mom about these things, and she's like, well, you know, I love you, it's all right, it's going to be good, peace and love, I get it.
There's no identity though.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect. There's a culture disconnect between the two of us. She can't ever understand me. And that was our conflict. You know, it's like, and that's the conflict I find with a lot of parents that are having black kids that are white. There's a disconnect there. There's a culture imbalance, believe it or not. And there's an identity crisis in that disconnect.
So did you find yourself compensating?
Always.
I mean,
I had to prove myself. My mom is white. And now when things came up, I had to prove that I was black, so I would do the extra to create more havoc.
And that got you in trouble.
And that got me in a lot of trouble.
You know, but you talk about, you have talked about two of your teachers, a principal and a coach.
Right.
Who
saved my life.
Saved your life.
Got me out of high school.
And you say saved your life.
Yeah, because I was on a path where I was breaking in, you know, into backyards, stealing weed plants and going out to the park and, you know, selling the weed everywhere I went. That was my hustle. And one time in particular, Dr. Henry, you know, for whatever reason, he took a liking to me. I spilled some water on the table in the cafeteria, and a young lady at the other end was sitting there, and the water stopped right when it hit the edge. And I pushed the table because she told me, you lucky it didn't hit me. I say, what? She got up, grabbed me with her fingernails, and we all got suspended. Now, I'm thinking it's over with. We just got sent home, not suspended and say for a week or so, just sent home that day. I come to class the next day to apologize to her. She's not there. And these goons come from Oakland, because I'm going to school at Berkeley at the time, and they come in at gunpoint to pull me out the class. And so that was the last straw to the principal. And so at this point, he made it clear if I was to get back in Berkeley High, I had to go and put this energy towards something else, which is running track. And he put me under the ring of Coach Willie White. And Willie White knew that I was a problem child, so every day he would pick me up at home and then take me to practice. And again, we would be in this car with 5 and 6 other kids that he would pick up. He really gave us this wolf pack type of synergy. And
well, was it wolf pack or was it family?
You know, it was such a when I use the term wolf pack, because we felt we were a bond. We had this synergy that, in fact, it was the first time in history we won state meet, boys and girls, and broke 13 national records doing it. So it was like Berkeley High had set precedents in 1981. And this Coach Willie White made that possible because of his love towards this group of kids that just worked and gave their all for him.
Was it because he was fatherly and he was making you employ your people skills and work together?
Right.
Teamwork.
Right.
Teamwork.
He brought the best out of you.
So I'm trying to find out how you go from that to jail.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I couldn't read or write past the 6th grade, so I ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Georgia. And I'm like, okay, I'm about to go out here and hang out. I went on a visit, and I was hanging out with Dominique Wilkins and Melvin Latney. And at the time, Dominique was like the man at the University of Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm walking in the club at the Ponda Inn somewhere in Athens, Georgia. And everybody looking at Dominique like, look at this, man. What's up, Dominique? He's like, I'm looking at him like, whoa, I love this. I can get with this. So, you know, this type of attention was kind of cool to me. And so, you know, we hung out that night, and it was like, whoa, magical for me. But when my grades came back, I couldn't get into the school. So I had to enroll in a junior college, and in junior college, I tried at Alameda for a quarter, because they got quarter systems and semester systems. For the first quarter, this coach wasn't giving me what Willie White would give me. He was like, you know, he looking at me like I'm the star, and I'm like, man, I need to be trained to be a star, you know, but you don't have what it takes to train me. And
you were
so,
accustomed to that hands-on
exactly,
attention.
that more like, get up, that more like, you know, I want to say stricter, firmer hand. And so I just left there and went to Merritt College, and they just somehow came up with grades and gave me classes and just kind of like gave me whatever I wanted.
What do you mean they came up with grades, Johnel? What do you mean?
Because you got to keep in mind that after a certain point on the semester system, you're no longer allowed to enroll. But as an athlete, they made that happen. So they backlogged my time frame of being in a classroom some kind of way and got me into Merritt College. So then I competed for Merritt and did real well there. And then you know, at this point, I recognized that I'm worth some money now. I'm an athlete. I want to be paid. So I'm like, okay, if y'all not finna pay me, you know, this apartment ain't enough y'all give me. I need more. So I decided to pack up and go to Mount Sac, where they were paying more money. You know,
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, so as we see these, just sidebar, as we see these athletes getting into all this trouble, just based upon, you know, boosters giving them money.
Right.
You're saying, wait a minute, the game is in the system.
Right.
You know, it's set up this way.
And it's real. Unfortunately, we think, oh, okay, this don't happen in school. No, it do happen. In fact, so much so, I remember competing in a track meet in Oregon, and Johnny Gray, which at the time wasn't our American record holder, Joe Douglas, which is the guy who coached Carl Lewis and all these other famous athletes, you know, there was an envelope that was slid underneath his door, and it was packed with cash. I was like, yeah, I'm seeing the picture now.
When you see the American educational system then, just having had these experiences, I mean, at every level, you see the inattention that our children receive. I mean, they're not getting what they need. Is this what has inspired you? You have this multi-million-dollar business. And I wish you could see it in Los Angeles, because it is something incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I've been blessed.
Oh, yeah, and you've been a blessing to a lot of people.
Thank you.
But you did something really interesting. You said, okay, I want to take all of these blessings, and you and your wife, big shout out to Mrs. Langerston, because we love Tasha, we love her, because she's got a program, we've got to get her back here.
From girls to women.
Absolutely. But you all picked up out of LA, and you bought an elementary school campus.
It's not let's get it straight. It's not an elementary school. It was a school, and you know, this school was operating for over 100 years. In St. Louis. It has a church that holds about 800 people, that was built in 1887, where the sister that invented the hot comb came to get her education at. There's a tunnel in my bowling alley underneath my gym.
Madam C.J. Walker.
Right.
Oh,
and that tunnel goes to the Mississippi River. This is how they had to come in.
This was part of the Underground Railroad.
Exactly.
Wow.
So this landmark that I purchased and turned into my home, I opened it up to the children so that they can see someone themselves living like this. It takes up almost a whole block. So it's like, okay, who is this fool that bought up all these bricks? And so now I want you to be me, you know. But if the people who are established in mainstream America is not coming back and moving, I'm in College Hill. This is where all the killings is taking place in St. Louis. You know, no one think that you, what you start getting money, you're gonna leave. Okay, you start getting money. I ain't mad at you going to Ethiopia and wherever else, but our culture here in America is suffering.
It's interesting, because I know my father talks about the time, well, because he grew up in the 40s and the 50s, he and my mother did. And I hear a lot of people from that time who say, you know what, the tragedy now is that in our neighborhoods, you don't see the most successful people.
Exactly.
You know, there was a time when your doctor lived around the corner from you or across the street. I mean, segregation was such that we were all living together. Now, I'm not saying that we all have to live in the same spot, but you do need to come back and give back. Because you said now this neighborhood, these kids, success is not alien to them. Now it's right up in their face. You're like, no, I live here. I live with you.
Exactly.
What is this program?
Urban Born.
Urban Born.
We motivate kids to want to learn. You know, this is a you know,
so
unorthodox
you make
way.
Urban positive.
Exactly. Because, you know, I heard you earlier talk about this subculture not being, you know, a subculture in its way of thinking.
It's ours.
It is ours. But, you know, I like to express one thing in particular about this particular culture. We don't have Africa. We don't have Europe. We don't have the soil. And I like to really make this clear. We come from slavery. We the only culture ever in history to come from slavery and stay in the same area
with the people who enslaved
us and grow out.
It's never happened in human history.
That's so right. I always teach people this. If you take a fish tank and you put a bunch of trout in this fish tank, and trout love to eat guppies. They just love to eat guppies. So you put a piece of glass in this fish tank, and you got guppies on this side and a trout on this side, and they see the guppies and they constantly trying to hit it, but they can't. They can't get it. They can't get it. They can't get it. So now you do that for 90 days, and then you take that glass out. The trout will starve themselves to death before they eat that guppy. Period.
So with this program, are you trying to retrain?
Break that cycle.
Okay.
Break that. It's right in front of them. The libraries is in front of you. All these resources is right there, hitting you in the face. But you're not going after it. There's programs out there that's right there, but we not going after it. It's the theory that we've been so denied for so long, going after it and getting knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, that now we've been dummied down to where we won't even go after that.
So what do you say to these young people, to these children? And because what is so impressive to me about your programs, and you've got to get the book, Urban Child, everybody, you got to get it, because you got to hear this whole story really, and see this program. I mean, because that's what this is taking you to that. Are you saying, it seems to me that Americans, white, black, yellow, red, we don't read. I mean, that's just been drummed out of the culture. A study proves that. And you're saying that, wait a minute, that's what I'm trying to do with the kids who I see?
We're not trying, we're doing it.
Okay.
In fact, we do it in such a way that we open up. The brain has these neural systems in it. When you're happy, you know, these endorphins is released. So while we have a basketball gym, while the endorphins is released and they're playing basketball, I'm juggling them. Spell necessary, spell consequences, spell attention, spell concentrate. I mean, I'm hitting them with words and teaching them sign language at the same time. And so now, where at one point kids was coming in, because we got over 100 and something kids now, where we just started and didn't know nobody. These are parents going out telling people, because we don't advertise about it. We doing it the old-fashioned way. We're canvassing the community and we're grabbing you and proving it with your child. And so these kids are constantly coming in. At one point they would come in and say, oh man, don't ask me to spell that, to give me a new word. So it's a motivating, once them endorphins is released and you having fun and then you learning and then you notice you can learn, we off and running.
Before we go, how can we get involved?
www, for all you who don't know, www.urbanborn.org. Get involved. See what we've been doing for the last 10 years in the urban culture. We've been around for over 10 years now.
Well, you know, the Santita Jackson Show, we're going to have to take our camera down there. Quentin. We're going to have to take our camera. Kathleen, Yvelle.
Yeah, come on to the hood.
That's right. Well, okay, we're going to do that. And we're going to come down there and we're going to spend some time with you.
We look forward to that.
We want to see that. We want to see that. I love you.
I love you.
And
oh, baby. No.
And I appreciate you, and I admire you, and I respect you, and I thank God for your journey.
Thank you,
thank God that you have taken everything that God has given you, and you understand. You understand that God is not cruel. God is so kind, God is so good, and He's given you a chance to bless so many people, and we thank God for you. Thank God.
Thank God too.
God bless you.
Same to you, sister. Thank you.
I love you, everybody. Hit me up on Twitter and Facebook. We want you to support Urban Child. Get that book, Urban Child. You got to read it. Well, you won't be able to read it. It's an audiobook, and I love it. I do. I really do. And I want you to hit me up on Twitter and Facebook, and let's talk about it. We're going to get down there we're going to get down to St. Louis.
Yeah, come on down.
I can't wait. I love you, Johnel.
Oh, baby.
But I love Mrs. Langerston even
more.
And these children, my godchildren down there. See you next week on the Santita Jackson Show.
All right.
Oh, bless your heart.
An Urban Child is a powerful personal, professional, and business development audiobook for inner city youth, young adults, and business-minded individuals. If you desire positive change in your life or care about someone who is headed down the wrong path, this book reveals the parallel between urban life and the illicit trade world, and that of corporate America's success.